Hello everyone, thank you for joining me once again. Today we're going to be doing the companion lesson/analysis for New Religion. I know there are a lot of New Religion versions out there. I'm going to focus on this one, the original recorded one. I'm sure that at some point I'll do the live arena version and the 87 tour version. The arena one's a lot faster. The 87 tour one is a bit funkier with the brass and all that. And it's going to be fun to compare those later, but for now we're just going to focus on this version. And real quick, if any of you out there work for a school, a college or a university in particular, you know that prepping for the fall is quite a feat. That's when you gain the most students and there's just a lot to do. So it is Friday, about 6:45, and I've had a long week. So I've earned this one. Join me in a cheers. Now while this pours, I'm going to mention something probably quite irrelevant, but we need to do something while this head settles, right? So I really wanted to get like a piano/string sound, and I'm quite surprised that my little trusty Casio, what is this, the CT-S1000V, does not have such a sound. The closest sound I got was this advanced piano pad, which if you hit it with more than one note, you do get a piano and a string synth, but it's kind of not the same thing. You need to... let's not get into that. Our beer is poured. The night is young. And let's get right to it. All right. So here we go. Let's just play the beginning, because the beginning is quite different. It's kind of doing some of the chords in the song, but in a different order. So let's just hear a second of it so we can get it in our heads. So right there, what's happening is that even though the song is in E minor, okay, harmonically this song is not complex. It's one of the least complex songs, and there's not a lot of clever substitutions or anything like that. So yeah, it's in E minor, but in this keyboard synth intro, it actually starts on D, and it's one of those like ambiguous sort of Ds where it's pretty much D minor, but I really just hear the... So it's going to start with... And that's when the bass goes. In the live version, I know he doesn't do it here, but I like to do that. Then it goes to a G. Then it goes back to an E minor. Then you hear this high guitar go. And then Andy again going. And then that sets us up for the main song, which starts off with... Let's listen for that. All right. So after that, it just repeats that line, and then you end on a C. And then the bass does the... And you're back into the E minor. Let's listen for that. And at the end of those phrases, the guitar does that. So that's a motif happening there. Now, way later, Nick does another motif, which is... So you see what I mean about that sound on the keyboard? It doesn't register unless you're playing like a triad next to it, like maybe... Kind of a unique thing it does. But anyway, that's another motif that Nick does. Let's listen for more, perhaps. So there's that motif, Nick's motif. Now this is going to repeat for a bit, just on that E minor with Simon doing his thing. And then we're going to get into D to C, just solid chords, like. Then back to that E minor. Let's listen for that. And that's it. Just D to C to E minor. And then it repeats that and just goes right back into it. To the second verse. And like I said, it's pretty simple, because after that, we're going to get into a chorus, which starts with that D to C thing, but then is going to continue to A and G. A major to G major. Let's listen for that. Look before you die. By the way, I want to mention in that part right there, the sort of beat part of the second verse, I love that vocal. I love the sort of fast rapping. It's not really rap, but you know what I mean. And with that other line on top, I remember hearing that as a kid, and I had the book that had the lyrics, and actually I had something that had the music in it too. And anyhow, it just fascinated me as a kid. Simon's such a great lyricist. And here's where we get into the chorus. So like I said, it starts with the D to C, and then it goes into the A. Same chords. And then you're back into the E minor. Let's listen to how it gets out of it. So that's it. And in that middle part, obviously it's kind of a bass solo, and the keyboards and everything, they're just kind of keeping it interesting, but it's really just sticking to that E minor tonality. So I'm pretty much just going to skip over that whole section. I think we're pretty much done with the harmonic analysis, actually. Let me just keep listening for any surprises. There's a cool note there, right? Ah, it's B, G, D. Cool. So right there, it's just D, 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 D sharp. And then we're back into that last quick vocal chorus. And yeah, then we're into another chorus. So that's interesting right there. We're doing D to C. But then I hear at that top note, or let's play it up here. So he's kind of creating a ninth there. Let's see if that's what he's really doing. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. He's kind of doing an A major ninth there, because we're adding the B on top. I like that. All right, after that, you know, the chorus just kind of fades out. So we're done with the harmonic analysis. Bass time. All right, now we're in bass time. So the general bass line is quite simple. If you're not interested in doing all the crazy subtleties, then I'll just outline the basic parts right now. The main line is so it's just that low E, and then a hammer on from the D to the E on this A string, and then up to the G, and then the D again. I remember when I was a kid, my ear wasn't developed enough, and I would play it like this. wasn't until I listened back, after a break of not playing it, that I said, wait a minute, that's not right. So yeah, make sure you're on that D. And then after that, it's going to go into the break D to C, just whole notes. And then there's like this pickup like this. And then you're just following the same pattern. Now when you get to the chorus, you're going to do that same pattern, but then you're going to go in to the A and the G. So pretending we're at a chorus already. So those are really just the basic parts. Of course, now we'll go into more of the subtleties. So let's just take a listen at the beginning, just to get in the groove, get in the mood here. So right there in the live version, and I can't help doing it here because it's just ingrained in my head, we do those hammer-ons. You see what I did there? I'm doing the hammer-ons, but I'm still muting, because if you don't mute, these notes are just going to ring out from the momentum. See how that doesn't really sound that clean, so you kind of want to keep this finger here like this. Or maybe you don't want to, or maybe you can't do that. I mean, kind of sounds cool just with all that crazy noise happening too. Just kind of lends to like just this crazy feeling, right? Anyhow, so after that, when it goes into the C, you're gonna go, and then you're gonna go into the. So you notice I'm not just going, or, because I think it sounds a little stiff, so I'm going. Let's listen for that. So yeah. Remember, I'm always thinking with that 16th note feel. So, all right, so after that, we're going to get into the verse. And of course, now we need to talk about the popping. So whenever he pops, most of the time, it's just C sharp to D. So, and this might be one of those instances where you don't want to follow the John technique of pretending you're doing fingerstyle, but just because it's quite difficult to do it. So I suggest you just thumb it. And let's listen for that. And there's that hammer on, right? So he's hammering off that A. So A to that C sharp. And there's an interesting variation though, and I don't know if it was intentional, but there's a sort of crazy hammer-on that's not popped. Let's listen for that. Come on, takes me nowhere with here. And I think what happened there is he just kind of maybe was going to get to the note late and just kind of hammered it on. So like it's kind of a C octave, but you're going to hit this C natural hammer on like this. Boom, boom, bye, boom, bit. Or maybe it's coming off the B like, I don't hear that B, but you could do that, it's easier. I kind of hear it as this C though. It's harder to do that, or maybe it's just like a slide up like. So maybe it was a kind of a weird little mistake, but it sounded cool and funky, so they kept it in. So there's that little variation, but most of the time you're going to go. Now you're not doing that every time, so you just kind of have to listen to when he does it or when you think it's appropriate to slot that in. One other weird little thing is before you do that first D to C, it's going to go D, D, A. The A is kind of subtle, but just pretend you're doing the normal line. Let's listen for that.
Too much to know.
Right? Let's listen. And same thing there, like I'm not doing it. I'm not doing like a staccato or like the eighth notes, you know, being very precise. It's just like. And there's another one of those. So. And then another pop to bring you back into the second chorus, or the second verse rather. And let's listen for any other subtleties there.
On the wind, lady screaming, lady leave me out.
So see right there, he's being tasteful. He's not doing the pop again. He's just.
They shout.
And then we're going to get into a second chorus.
I can't stop myself, it's a new religion.
So remember, when we get into the choruses, you're going to do the D to the C. And then you're going to go A to G. Now here, this part, most of the time, well, let's just say he does a mix between doing C to C sharp back to the D. But sometimes he does B to the C. So what I mean is, or sometimes he goes. In particular, going to the break part, the little crazy harmonic bass solo part, he definitely does the B. Listen. Right. And then we get into this bass solo part. Let's listen real quick. Okay, so one thing I want to point out, I'm going to show you, I'm going to break this down, but I suspect that this was an overdubbed part, a mix of two bass tracks. If you listen very carefully around, I think the 142 mark, you'll hear that he's doing the lick. I'll show you the lick, but you hear the harmonics still happening. I don't think you can play that at the same time. I can't figure out a way to do it anyway. So let's see if we can listen. Oh, I think I misspoke on the time. 3:42. Obviously, we're way into the track. Let's listen. Right there. Yeah, 3:44, 3:45. Listen, I'm going to go to the part right now. And when he does the little lick, that kind of ties the parts together. I still hear the harmonic. So see if you still hear the harmonic. Okay. Whether it's overdubbed or not, doesn't matter. Here's how we're going to play that line. We're going to go. I used to do it up here. And you could do it there, but I think it sounds a little more genuine and it's easier to do if you do this harmonic here. It's the same note. Because they're those kind of tuning harmonics, right? When you're tuning and you want to do. So it's the same harmonic, but I think it's easier to go. And my advice would be to let the second one ring out more than the first one, if you can. Like, kind of let that second one sustain a little more. I think it lends itself to the part a little more. So the first part is just your normal groove part. And then you go. You kind of hit it a little hard. I mean, you don't have to, but kind of creates a little excitement there. And you're going to do that a couple of times, and then you're going to do the lick. The lick is, so it's a little ghost note action there, right? If you can't do it, don't do it. And it only does that little lick, I think, 3 times, and then you just keep repeating it. It's going to be a bit grueling to keep doing that, so just kind of skip them if you're getting tired. You don't always need to do it. It doesn't need to be exactly like the record. You're going to get out of that by doing a very fun, so just D, 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 D sharp, E. Then you're just playing the chorus out, and there's really not much to it after that, except that you're going to kind of double time the A and the G. It's not double time, but you're going to do some more syncopation there. Let's listen for that. Okay, yeah, there's that kind of last verse, and then you go into the chorus. And there's another little variation there, but getting back to the syncopation. That part is what I wanted to point out. It doesn't always go. In that instance, he goes C, C, G. And then you just play around with it, you know, do some fun licks. I did some harmonics, you know. Play around with it, make it your own. Have fun. All right. Thank you for joining me. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. See you next time. And we are done.